Welcome to Cash in the Celebrity Attic, the programme that hunts for valuables in the homes of the famous and then sells them with them at auction to raise money for good causes. Today, we're going to meet a well-known personality from the world of journalism. She began her writing career when she was 20 and became the archetypal Chelsea bird of the swinging 60s. She then became a top rock journalist, interviewing the likes of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Jimi Hendrix. After the highs and lows of rock and roll, she became one of the country's leading agony aunts. Are you in a dilemma as to who she is? Today, I'm in West London and I'm on my way to meet the writer and journalist, Virginia Ironside. One of the nation's best-loved agony aunts, Virginia writes a monthly column for national newspapers and still finds time to write novels. Her mother was fashion guru Janie Ironside, her father, an artist, and Virginia spent her early years in India. She lives in this stylish London townhouse surrounded by an amazing array of antiques and collectibles that she's picked up over many years. Despite being a self-confessed hoarder, she's decided to trade in some of her treasures to raise money for a charity which is very close to her heart. Also helping us today is Virginia's sister, Kate, a journalist who's followed in her famous siblings' footsteps. Jaunty, out in the garden, taking the air and sorting out your problems, because if you are, we've come to the right place.
Now, I need some advice on gardening. What's she like on that?
Well, she seems to be pretty good at advice on most things, so I'm sure she can come up with something. But, of course, she's going to need your advice on what to take to auction to raise money for her charity.
Now, there I can sort her out.
Should we go and find her? Coming up on today's Cash in the Celebrity Attic, looks like it's party time at Virginia's house. That was fantastic! I give our agony aunt some shocking news.
And that's the lowest.
That's the lowest end.
Fantastic!
And it might be kisses now.
I want to be part of this. Because
But will there be tears when we get to auction? Blue Jumper could have gone another 20, couldn't he? Find out when the hammer falls. Kate, Virginia, thank you so much for inviting us into your home, which is full of the most amazing things. There are pictures everywhere on the walls and every shelf full of all sorts of bits and pieces, which you've collected over how many years living in this house?
35. It's a long time to be in a house, isn't it? Yes.
And the house is absolutely full of stuff, Kate.
Absolutely heaving with it. I mean, she's a real hoarder. I mean, the place is a complete treasure trove. I always used to have great fun coming here when I was very little. And the toys you could play with was marvellous. I just hope one day I never didn't break them.
No, you never did.
There's 19 years between you, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're half-sisters.
Yes. I mean, you were the first baby I ever saw, really.
Yes, and she made the vast mistake of introducing her to me when I was in my cot. She said, "Hello, I'm your sis." And she's been sis ever since. You can't call her Virginia, it's sis. And that's it.
So today you're going to help sort out some of this stuff, are you?
I certainly am. This is quite an event. The idea that she's actually going to get rid of everything is extraordinary.
What sort of things do you think we're going to give Jaunty to look at?
Well, luckily, there's quite a lot of stuff from the 60s, because when I was quite young, about 25, I became rock correspondent for the Mail in the 60s, and I was steeped in that era, particularly Beatles stuff. I was never really a Beatles fan, but I kept it because I thought one day I might be able to come on your programme.
And here you are.
And here we are.
And we're going to raise how much money, do we hope?
Oh, well, I hope millions and millions, of course, but... realistically, well, I hope we'll get more than 500.
And what charity is the money going to go to?
It's Hope and Homes for Children, and it helps orphans in Romania and Albania and all over the world, actually, now,
yes,
isn't it?
They're
Africa.
going to all sorts of war zones and try and get children back to parents they've been separated from, or failing that, put them into small family homes where they can have a stable future.
What a great charity to raise money for. Let's get Jaunty to work.
All right.
I think we're in for a fun day with this pair, and I have a feeling that Virginia's colourful past means that we're going to have some fantastic items to search through today. Here to lead the way is our expert John T. Herndon. He's passionate about items of quality from any era, and it looks like he's already found something from the swinging 60s. Virginia, there's so much stuff here. What have you found, John T?
Well, I found this collection here of Beatles fan club records. Now, they're no ordinary records because they're not on vinyl, they're actually flexi disc. Can you see that? See how they bend?
Yes.
How did you get them?
Well, I think, as far as I remember, it was because I was a journalist, and I think the Beatles office, you know, all the Beatles stuff was sent to me, you know, books, records, and fan club stuff.
Why have you still held on to them?
Well, I suppose I thought that since they weren't for sale, they would have some rarity value.
Yes,
and
yes.
that because you only could get them if you were a fan
Yeah.
or a journalist, which I was.
And you were a fan, were you, of the Beatles or not?
No. I'm a Rolling Stones person myself. They
Really?
were much more interesting, I felt, yes.
$64,000 question.
Yeah.
Why did you prefer the Stones to the Beatles?
Well, the Beatles were... everybody's mothers loved the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones were completely different. They were a nightmare, absolutely wonderful. Mad, bad and dangerous to know, the Stones, and much more attractive.
We've got two badges here as well, which are very collectible as well. I mean, this little collection here we must sell together, because these two badges here are of Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, and of course we're obviously missing George Harrison and John Lennon. I'm sure they would be issued like everything else in sets of 4 with all the Beatles on them. But these are very desirable. In fact, these are probably worth as much as your singles.
What sort of value could we put on these, John T?
Well, they're probably looking at just under the £100 mark. So
Really?
we're looking probably for £80 to £100 value at auction just for these plastic items. That's really what
That's
they are, aren't they?
amazing. Certainly didn't imagine these were worth anything.
Very collectible, all of this.
Good, well...
Can't wait to see what else you've got in the house. 80 to 100 we've started on.
I'll take care of
Put
that.
that away
Excellent.
carefully.
Good.
Should we go see what else we can find?
Let's...
Rock on! Well, Virginia may not be a Beatles fan, but there are plenty out there who are. £80 for that collection is certainly music to my ears. But we need to roll up our sleeves and get rummaging if we're going to reach that £500 target. There's such a diverse range of items here, from antique prints to quirky collectibles, and it's not long before Kate discovers a Victorian brass lamp. It was converted to electricity by their father, who had a passion for trawling antique shops and fairs. It should make a respectable £50 to £80. And Kate has got another collection for John T next door. You inviting us all for afternoon tea?
Oh, cup of tea.
Absolutely,
Cup
of
of tea,
course.
cup
What
of
would
tea.
you like? Indian or China?
Well, they're rather pretty, these, aren't they?
They are. Now, I haven't seen these ones before, so I think this must come from Virginia's side of the family, from her mother's side. But I just think they're rather charming.
When you say from Virginia's side of the family, that's because you've both got the same dad.
We've got the same father, but not the same mother.
Not the same mother.
Yes, and I think this belonged to Virginia's grandparents on the other side.
Who were in Kashmir, weren't they?
Yes, they were indeed.
Can I have a look? This is really charming. Now, looking at this cup and saucer, this porcelain cup and saucer, it has an English feel to it. Can you see the sort of sprigs of flowers? It's a very British feel. But take a look at this. Have a look at the back stamp here. And in the middle, can you see the St. George and the dragon? So is it English?
Well, presumably.
No, it's not. Have a look at the emblem on the top there. That's Russian.
Oh, you're joking.
And have a look at this. Can you see this? This is Arabic.
That's squiggle.
That's right.
Oh, you
That's
would
yeah. Because,
It just looks like a...
wait for this, this would be made for the Ottoman Empire, so it would be
how
sent to
priceless.
Istanbul, to Constantinople.
Oh, wonderful. So how on earth would it end up with an English family in Kashmir?
We all want to know that question.
And I bet Virginia doesn't know either.
She probably doesn't.
So
No.
all I can say, this is incredibly well travelled, this tea set, and it's in very good condition.
Do you think that Virginia would mind if you suggested that we take it to auction?
I'll cross that bridge a little later, shall I?
And if
I'll
we-
offer a nice cup of tea first.
So if we take this incredibly well-travelled tea set to auction, how much do we think it might make?
Well, it's worth a lot more than the price of a cup of tea, that I can assure you. It's incredibly rare, so collectors are really going to get their hands on this set. At auction, the value for this tea service is between £200 and £300.
That's fantastic.
Very good news.
Oh.
I think we've got Rummager in Chief. We should send her off and see what else she
Yes.
can find.
What more can you find me? What more can you find me?
Oh,
Come
I
on.
shall go off and see.
Come on.
Right.
Wow, that's a fantastic value for the tea set. I hope Kate can persuade Virginia to part with it. At this rate, we'll be racing towards that £500. So Jonty and Kate continue their search, whilst I find out a little bit more about our fascinating host. Virginia, you wrote your very first book when you were in your very, very early 20s, Chelsea Bird. What was it that got you started?
The swinging 60s suddenly arrived and every single newspaper was desperate for a rock correspondent. And all the papers then, all their staff were middle-aged, boozy old men, and they needed somebody in a miniskirt and long high boots who knew about rock music, and luckily I was there.
And I mean, you met the Beatles, you met the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, all of them. And how did you react when you met these people?
I was terrified, Angela. I mean, I was so young, I was a real fan. I was all trembling and longing for them to kiss me. You know, the last thing I felt like doing was asking them how old they were or what they liked for breakfast or whatever one asked people then. It was I don't know how I managed to keep this column going, but I did.
So how did you make the leap from rock correspondent, Chelsea chick, all of that, to become an agony aunt?
When I heard the job of an agony aunt was going on Woman magazine, I thought, well, that should be nice for me. And I got the job. I couldn't believe it, and I was there for 10 years. This, remember, was the days before the internet. So if you had a phobia about being sick in public or something, there was nowhere you could find help, nowhere. Now you just put in sick, phobia, obsession, and Google will come up with every self-help group there is.
So you've been replaced by the internet.
I have, thank goodness. Although I still do it, of course, because I still write an agony column for The Independent every week.
Well, you've stopped writing for today, at least, because we've come to look for wonderful things to take to auction, and I know that Jonty and your sister are busy rummaging around the house. Shall we go and see what they're up to?
Let's.
Well, Virginia certainly rubbed shoulders with the stars during her time as a journalist. But it's time to put thoughts of rock stars to one side now and get back to the rummage. As our search continues, I'm sidetracked by one of our agony aunts' collections. Virginia, it's a bit like being in a toy shop standing in front of this collection of bits and pieces. Do you come and play with these toys yourself?
I don't see them as toys. I see them as an automata and things that work, as sort of works of art, really. So I see them in a different light to you.
What is this, Virginia?
It's a marvellous festival hat that I got at a religious festival in India. I saw little boys wearing them and I was so charmed. I had to have one.
I love that. Yes, I think that would probably be my favourite. Yeah. What you got there, Jonty?
Well, I found a collection of cigarette cards here. Whose were these?
Ones of the little dogs were very much collected.
I've seen those, yes.
Were these all Daddy's?
Yes.
He was the smoker in the family.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He was a 60-a-day man.
Really?
No, he had a heart attack and then that was that.
And I had to encourage him to smoke even more. I was begging him to keep puffing. So this was when I was quite small. Yeah. So I could get a famous bulldog breed or whatever. They're rather nice.
But they certainly used to be very, very collectible. I mean, do they still have a place in collections today, Jonty?
Yes, it's still big business. Never underestimate your private collection of cigarette cards because they could be worth a small fortune. But it's the rare sets that make big money. So definitely worth putting in the auction sale, this little collection here.
If that went to auction, what might it make?
We're talking £20, £30, that sort of
Yes, that doesn't surprise me, actually.
But it belonged to your joint father,
yes.
So are you happy that they should go?
Yes. I'm not going to be
Yes,
too
I
worried
don't think we
about
want to be reminded of our father's smoking.
Certainly not.
Well, his smoking is going to be of great value to somebody else by the sound of it.
Good.
Well, that's all right.
And more money in the pot.
Good. Excellent.
Good. OK, let's look. I'm loath to leave the toys, actually,
no,
but we've got to stop playing and go back to work, I think.
Right.
Well, it may not seem a huge amount for the cigarette cards, but it is all money in the kitty. And there's another few pounds in the charity fund when I find these dresses. They're another collection from Virginia's fashion guru mother and range from 50 to 100 years old. Perfect for fancy dress or a theatre company's wardrobe. Jonty hopes they'll make £60 to £120. Virginia also decides to send this collection of Victorian embroidered garments to auction, including an exquisite christening dress. Jonty values the textiles at £50 to £80, so fingers crossed that the bidders agree. We're making great progress and are nearly up to our £500 target already. But we've still got plenty to search through, and we seem to be developing a bit of a fashion theme.
Jaunty, what do you think of this?
Oh, I say.
This is the skirt of a little outfit that my mother bought. Isn't it pretty? It's got a little bustle at the back.
Yes.
I see. With a lovely little
a jacket as well.
Jacket, which goes with it, which is
oh, look
buttoned
at that.
up. And this is the little cape that goes with it.
Oh, look at that.
You see how pretty and it's how lovely it hangs. And here's a little hat that goes on top.
Oh, look at that. Oh, yes, say. So have you worn this at all?
I did. I wore it twice to a fancy dress party, and I can tell you I had to breathe in very, very deeply because it's terribly tight and it really does need corsets and women to strap you in. I'm afraid I can't fit into it anymore, so that's the sad truth.
So where was this from?
It must have been from an antique shop in Leamington Spa, because my mother was always fascinated by fashion and clothes. And I think in the 40s, when she was there at Leamington, she must have gone around antique shops where they were selling things, you know, 100 years back, or anyway, certainly Victorian clothes.
We've got such fabulous quality here. I mean, here, all the detailing here is finished in silk, which is lovely.
Yes.
And I do see that this really is in pretty good order. The sort of thing that we could put into the auction sale, and value has to be worth, what, 60 to 80 pounds.
So it'd be lovely to know that somebody got something out of it, because as I say, I'm just too large now.
Now, do you want a hand putting it away, or should we take it outside and pack it up?
Let's take it down.
Okay.
Great.
That's a fantastic price for the dress, and it takes us well and truly past our original £500 target. Kate decides to tackle the cupboard under the stairs, where she finds this clutch of caps tucked away on a shelf. Collected by Virginia's mother, who was Professor of Fashion at the Royal College, Jaunty values them at £40 to £60. I know Virginia's keen to raise as much money as possible for her charity, so we're eager to continue the search throughout her beautiful home. Jaunty's been rifling through Virginia's kitchen cupboards. He finds a set of coffee cups and saucers with a different artist featured on each one. Virginia bought them 20 years ago, and when Jaunty values the set at £30 to £40, she's more than happy to part with it. Virginia, your parents were both very artistic. Your father, a painter and a sculptor, your mother, a fashion guru. How much of an influence were they on you?
They were a huge influence. They were clever, artistic, and my mother, of course, as Professor of Fashion at the Royal College of Art, was in the thick of the swinging 60s, and her students included Ozzie Clark and all kinds of people that we take for granted now, and she oversaw an enormous number of fashion stars.
Your dad did something very famous, didn't he? Because he designed the reverse side of all the first decimal coins.
Yes, and it's a wonderful achievement. He did the Britannia and the little lion. He was very proud of that, because to have your designs in people's pockets is terrific.
Your charity is one that deals very closely with children who have had very disturbed backgrounds. Tell me more about it.
Hope and Homes for Children started off, actually, when my cousin's husband was a soldier in Bosnia, and there was a lot of bombing, and he came across an orphanage that had been bombed and all the children were in the cellar, and he, with the help of his men, rebuilt the orphanage for the children. And when he left the army, he decided to build orphanages all over the place, particularly in Romania and Albania. Later he realised that orphanages weren't the answer, and actually it was better for children to be brought up in small family units. But why I particularly want to give money to this charity is that I've been both to Albania and Romania. I can hardly speak about it, actually. The sights I've seen are unbelievably awful. I mean, terrible. You wouldn't know how terrible they were.
It clearly upsets you a lot even to talk about it, doesn't it? Mm. You've said you want to raise not less than £500. What sort of a difference would that make to the work of this charity?
I hope £500 will go towards their work. I can't say what individual difference it would make, but I feel very strongly that these children need every penny.
It's very emotional talking to Virginia about a cause that's clearly so close to her heart, so we're all keen to find as many items as possible before the day's end. Jonty's been searching upstairs and finds a leather jacket that was the height of fashion in the 60s, but it's been gathering dust in her wardrobe, so she's happy to let it go. It's a tad more modern than some of the other clothing finds today, hence the £20 to £40 price tag. Meanwhile, our agony aunt has dug out something that could be rather special.
Look what I found. I've got this book by John Lennon that seems to be signed.
Wow.
I know.
How did you get that?
Well, it must have been one of these things that was sent to me because as I was doing the rock column, they sent me everything, every LP, every record, everything.
Can I have a look?
Yes, do.
Because the market is fraught with copies of his signature.
Yes.
Because in the heyday of the Beatles particularly, the fan club themselves, the members of the fan club, started signing Beatles signatures because there was such a demand for it. So the most important thing is to clarify whether that is John Lennon's signature. I believe the signature to be correct.
And if it is, that's
Really?
pure gold, isn't it?
It's really very, very good news indeed. He actually put his pen to paper here, which is great. Can you have a look? Can you see that the ink there, the way that
Yes.
that's gone from a biro, and that
Yes.
really looks like that, because you're talking facsimiles, you're talking all sorts of copies.
How could you get that authenticated, Jonty?
Well, there are people in the market that are very familiar with Beatles signatures. There are dealers, there are auctioneers, there are people that will be very familiar and will know instantly whether this is
Yes.
correct or not. And what do you think it's worth?
Sort of £100.
Okay.
I don't know.
He's got that look, Virginia.
It is. Listen, it's a lot more than that, an awful lot more than that. My hunch is that this, if it's correct, is going to be worth between £600 and £800.
No.
Yeah, and maybe more as
That's
well.
believable.
In which case, that would be your entire budget in
just
that
in this
one
book,
little
yeah.
book.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
That's amazing. It's just been hanging about in my bookcase upstairs.
yeah.
I think we've got to see what else we can find in the house. Okay.
I was absolutely amazed by the John Lennon book because I really didn't think it was worth anything. Partly because I think it isn't worth anything to me. And it's amazing to think that anybody could want it and that John Lennon's, who I don't rate very highly, that his signature could fetch such a lot.
Well, our day's rummaging is very nearly over, and after the John Lennon book, you'd think we'd be putting our feet up, but not at all. Well, not just yet, anyway.
Look at this collection here.
Very lovely.
This is wonderful. So what I'm looking at here is David Bailey's portrait collection. So it's a box set. In fact, here it says box of pin-ups.
Yes.
Now, the fascinating part about these wonderful black and whites is that David Bailey, as a photographer, he was the first to crop the shots. And if we look at Lord Snowdon here, can you see what I mean? His head
Yes.
is sliced
Yes,
off.
yes.
Now, there's the reason for that is that it looked like you were closer to your subject. I mean,
Yes.
this is probably the best iconic picture from this
lovely
collection.
picture of
Yes.
Mick, yes.
It's Mick Jagger,
Yes.
your star.
Yes, absolutely.
But can you see how cropped that is?
Yes.
Now, that's on the front of
Yes.
the box, isn't it?
Yes,
That's the
yes.
one. So, have you ever really thought what these portraits might be worth? Have a look at these, Angela.
There are the most amazing collection of iconic images from
Yeah.
the 60s. These are the glitterati of that period, aren't they?
They're wonderful. I feel this collection's got to be worth between £500 and £800.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's
heavens.
a lot. Yes.
And you're still happy to put them in?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. I am.
But if we tot up everything that Jonty's looked at today and just take the lowest figure, bearing in mind that at the start of today you said to me you wanted to make not less than £500 for your charity, we should walk away with £1,710.
That's a lot more than I thought.
A lot more than you thought.
Right, and that's the lowest.
That's the lowest end.
Fantastic! Amazing.
What we need are a lot of 60s fans and Beatles fans
Yes.
to flag up their numbers on the day.
Absolutely.
But we could
Well, that
perhaps
would be
even do
great.
better.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
That would be lovely. That would be so nice. Think of
Absolutely
those
fantastic.
orphans. Yeah,
Indeed.
lovely.
Virginia and Kate have been real sports, and our Agony Aunt's home has turned up some fabulous items that bring back great memories of the swinging 60s. We've all got high hopes for the Victorian Russian tea set, which Jonty valued at a fantastic £200 to £300. At £20 to £30, these vintage cigarette cards collected by their father could light up the sale room for the right bidder. And of course, Virginia's 60s rock and roll past gave us all sorts of treats, including that signed John Lennon book priced at £600 to £800, and those stunning David Bailey prints at a very groovy £500 to £800. I'm hoping there are going to be some serious fans in the sale room. Still to come on Cash and the Celebrity Attic, one of our Agony Aunt's items strikes a chord at today's auction.
Yes, it's wonderful. That's so...
But as prices rise, one bidder isn't budging.
£16, surely. £16, go on. No?
Be there when the hammer falls. When we last met up with Virginia Ironside and her sister Kate at Virginia's home in West London, we found lots of memorabilia from the 1960s when Virginia was a rock journalist. There were lots of other lovely things there as well, and we brought them all here today to sell at the Chiswick auction rooms in West London. Now, Virginia's target is £500 for a charity that's really very, very close to her heart. So let's hope that the bidders today are prepared to rock and roll when her items go under the hammer. Well, there certainly seems to be a real buzz in the sale room today, and with only minutes to go before the first hammer falls, our expert Jonty is having a final look at those fabulous David Bailey prints. Jonty, it's very easy to see why these would have had a great appeal up on the bedroom walls of youngsters in the 60s. Understandably, then, not many of these collections have actually survived intact, have they?
And the reason for that is that those posters went back up on the wall and never back into the box.
We've actually got quite a lot of interest in this collection of Bailey photographs, haven't we?
Oh, yes, and there's bound to be. This is a rare collection.
But then Virginia had a lot of stuff from the 60s, which is great because that's pretty cool, that retro stuff at the moment, isn't it?
Very cool. And, of course, anything to do with the Beatles, we've got that fabulous signed John Lennon book, and it's my opinion that that's a correct signature, so I think that's great, and that should do very well, particularly.
Well, I know that Virginia and Kate have arrived. Shall we go and see what they think?
Yeah.
We're really counting on plenty of Fab 4 fans waiting to bid. Meanwhile, our very own Fab 2, Virginia and her sister Kate, are already getting into the swing of things as they check out the competition. Virginia, Kate, you must be the only two people in this entire auction room who are not looking at the David Bailey pictures.
You mean people are looking at them?
Absolutely. In fact, they have caused quite a stir, haven't they, Jonty?
Absolutely. It's a rare collection, an unusual collection, and, of course, there are going to be all sorts of people, and I've seen all sorts of people pouring all over them.
No regrets, then, that you're not going to take them home and pin them up on the walls?
I wouldn't be pinning them because I know from Jonty that those pin marks devalue a picture right away.
She's talking like a dealer already.
I like her thinking.
What do you reckon, Kate?
At the end of the day, it's are the bidders out there? And if it's not the right bidder, who knows?
And I'm sure you're also hoping that there are going to be a lot of people interested in your Russian teacups.
Oh, I thought they were divine, and it would be really nice to see them fetch a good whack. We're just really crossing fingers.
Well, the auction room is absolutely chock-a-block with people today, so I'm betting that there probably are quite a few Beatles fans and Russian tea set fans in the room. I think we'd better go and take our place and see how they really do.
Right.
Just before the bidding gets underway, a quick reminder that if you're planning on buying or selling at auction, you will be charged commission alongside other fees, so do check with the sale room first. It's Beatlemania coming up. We've got those wonderful badges and all those records that are coming up, and I think, you know, there are a few people here who look as if they could like the Beatles.
There's no screaming fans as such,
not
but
yet.
I'm sure there should be collectors here.
Oh, I can see quite a few of the Beatles generation here, I think.
120A is the first lot, and I'm already bid £65 for this lot for the Beatles memorabilia with me at £65, and I've got a £70 bid in the room. At £70 in the room's against commission. Anybody else want to come in? 75, 80, 85, £85 at the far back there at £85. Anybody else? At 85, 90 there now. 95, 100. £100 in that doorway now at £100. Anybody else? £100 for the records at £100. At £100 it's going then £100.
They are so collectible, aren't they, Jonty?
Of course they are. I mean, as I said to you in the house, you have so many Beatles fans globally, and dealers just love to get their hands on something that's a little bit unusual. It's those badges that made the difference, I can tell you.
Bet you wish you had the set now, don't you? Virginia's Beatles memorabilia certainly hit the right note with our bidders, making the upper estimate of £100 a great start. Next up is that collection of cigarette cards. Not quite as rock and roll as the Beatles ephemera, but cartophilie, that's card collecting to you and me, is a popular hobby. With an estimate of £20 to £30, let's hope that their less than perfect condition doesn't put the bidders off.
Some of them were a bit dog-eared, weren't they?
Yes, I'm afraid they were, because I used to love just looking at them one by one. Anyway, can't think anybody would want them.
Lot 127A is a small collection of unmounted cigarette cards. Somebody for £10 for me, for the cigarette cards. At £10 surely, £10 I'm bid, a maiden bid of £10, they're here to be sold. At £10 I can sell them, £12, the lady there. 14. £14 still nearer to me at £14, they're here to be sold. Are you bidding? No, £14 nearer to me, they're going for £14. 14.
Not too bad.
No, it's all right.
Yes.
I mean, they weren't doing anything. And £14 is quite nice. Every little helps.
Virginia's right, of course. Every little does help. And with plenty of choice lots still to come, we're not going to start worrying. Well, not quite yet. Next up is our Russian tea set given to Virginia by her grandmother and valued at a rather imperial £200 to £300. With interest in Russian artefacts at an all-time high, we're hoping that this will easily make its estimate.
Now, this is where you've got to be eagle-eyed, Kate, because it's the Russian tea set coming up
I
now.
know, I'm just hoping and hoping for as many bidders as possible. Suddenly, £200, £300 seems far too expensive. I'm sure nobody will bid.
Don't worry, Kate, because I'm quietly confident we're going to sell this lot.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
Nice Russian Gardener Factory tea set. Where should we start this? £100 for it, surely? £100 to start me, 100, 110, 120, at £120. 130 I'll take. 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, £170 is still cheap for 170. At 170 I can sell it though. £170 for the tea wares, 170 they go.
Didn't quite get through, did it?
It didn't. It didn't. Let's hope we have better luck later on.
At £30 under the lowest estimate, the Victorian Russian tea set didn't exactly cause a revolution in the sale room, but it's still a healthy sum towards our £500 charity total. Some bygone fashion now, and that lovely Victorian gown, hat and cape that Virginia's enjoyed wearing to fancy dress parties. Well, we're hoping it'll make a fetching £60 to £80.
We were admiring it earlier, weren't we?
Yes,
And,
we were.
it was fabulous quality. The quality is quite superb.
OK, here it goes.
A maiden bid of £30, and 5 I'll take, 35, 40, 45, 50. £50 in the scarf at £50 and 55 somebody else. Interesting lot going for £50. Anybody else want to come in? At £50 I'm selling it then. £50 it goes at £50.
Yes, how do you feel?
I was sad, sad but happy.
We do seem to have some rather buttoned-up bidders in the sale room, with that elegant Victorian collection only managing a rather shabby £50. Perhaps vintage clothing and textiles just aren't the rage today, because those other collections of Victorian and embroidered items also fail to impress and remain unsold. Today's sale is proving a bit of a disappointment, so this is probably a good time to take stock of our current total.
Your target's £500, isn't it,
Yes.
Virginia? Well, I can tell you that so far we've actually made £334.
That's good.
That's
And
promising.
we've got that wonderful John Lennon book still to
Yes.
come, and we've got the David Bailey photographs, and Jonty and I are getting really excited about those because I think they're going to do
you?
really well. So what we're going to do is take a bit of a break. Jonty, you're going to go and take a look and see what else is in the sale room,
Yeah,
aren't you?
there's all sorts of things I need to have a look at. I need a close look at, actually.
And I think what you guys ought to do is just kind of calm down, because I think the excitement comes in the second half. Come on.
So, even with the highs and lows of the first half, I'm not too concerned just yet. Remember, we have still got the signed John Lennon book and those striking Bailey prints. As the second half gets underway, we're continuing the clothing theme with that varied collection of hats, which Jonty's valued at £40 to £60.
Conservative estimate there, Jonty?
Not quite sure. You know, we've been struggling a wee bit. Remember in the first half we were struggling a wee bit, so let's just see what happens.
165A are the caps, 165A. 20 for the caps, surely for £20, 20 there. £20 over there at £20 and 2 I'll take. At £20 they... 22 upstairs. Do you want 24? £22 then at £22.
Still going up.
No, 24. £24 then at 24, nobody else, £24. Not sold, I'm afraid, either.
Not sold.
Well, I'm not too disappointed because there were some really sweet little hats there, which I always think somebody might like.
Will you wear them?
You never know, one day.
Well, they may be just the thing for a stylish agony aunt, but there's certainly not much passion for fashion among today's bidders. Under the hammer next is that Victorian gas lamp, once owned by Virginia's father. After a shaky start to the second half, we're hoping that the price tag of £50 to £80 will give our running total a healthy glow.
Now, the shade is in very good condition. Am I correct?
I think it is, Oldie, even though it's glass. It hasn't got a chip in it, and it's very pretty.
Well, let's see what happens, eh?
Lot 173A is an adjustable brass table lamp with shade, 173A. Start me for £30 for the brass lamp, surely, for 30, surely. £20 then to get it going. 20 unbid, a maiden bid of £20, 22, 24, 26, 28.
The sort of thing that looks lovely on a desk, this, isn't it?
£34, 36, 38, 40. £40 it is now. £40 for the lamp.
That's better.
For £40, it's going for 40. At £40 it goes.
It was very delicate. I was always worried it would break.
Well, that's relieved you of that worry now, Virginia.
Well, it's not a disaster yet, although it seems that our progress is being hampered by some rather sluggish bidding. I think they might need a bit of perking up. Coffee, anyone?
So where did you get these from then, Virginia?
I think it was from the shop of the Courtauld Institute, because they're quite arty and they're very sweet sort of little devices. They're a mirrored cup in a distorted saucer, and when you look at the reflection of the saucer in the cup, it turns into a picture. So they're quite amusing.
Lot 180A are the coffee cans and saucers, 180A. Am I bid £10 for those? £10 to start me, surely, for the cups. Cups and saucers for £10. 10 I'm bid, thank you. 12, 14, go on. 16, £16, £18. No, £18, further back then at £18. £20 I'm bid there at £20. He's finally worked himself up to it at £20. Nobody else? £20. I'm going to sell them then for £20. They go for 20.
We think that's a fair price,
I
don't
think
you?
so, I think so, yes.
Yes.
I think I probably got a little bit carried away, so you can slap my wrists.
Oh, I don't think we need to go that far, Jonty, but at least the successful bidder got a bargain.
When they sort of started the bidding at £10, I just said, well, what the hell, you know, it's for charity. So in any event, I was prepared to go a little bit higher. And finally, the hammer went down at £20. I'm very happy that I've got them. I'll probably keep them for a short period before giving them away.
How very generous. Well, that leather jacket is another fashion failure, coming in at a disappointing £10. Surely things can only get better. And I'm sure they will, because our penultimate lot today is that very rare signed John Lennon book, which Jonty has priced at between £600 and £800. Some decent bidding really could make all the difference to our charity total. Imagine that.
It's John Lennon coming up now, and we are pretty convinced, aren't we, Jonty, that this is the real thing.
I have genuine confidence that we've got the right signature there.
195A is the lot you've all been waiting for, the John Lennon in his own right, signed inside the front cover. A lot of interest in this lot. Where should we start this? It must be worth £400 to start me. £400 for the book. £300 then. 300 I'm bid on the telephone. Good start at £300. 400. 500 on the telephone. 600. 700. How about 800? £800 I'm bid now. Do you want 900 on 900 I'm bid now? Let's go in 20s until 1,000. Do you want 920? 920. 940. 960. £960, still at 960. 980 on the telephone. It's going to be round money 1,000. No, 980 on that telephone at £980. At £980 then. I'm going to sell it for 980. For £980 it goes 980 then.
Virginia, it's staggering.
That's virtually double what you want to raise for those children.
Oh,
that is brilliant, isn't it?
It's only a little book.
I know, but it's got a big signature.
Oh, it's really good. Isn't that lovely?
Congratulations. Yes.
Well done.
Oh, well done.
With the John Lennon book, I thought it was going to go on forever. It's just a shame it didn't make the 1,000, but 980 was an enormous amount of money for it to make. And to think that it's just been lying around, doing nothing with me, it's great.
And with those evocative David Bailey prints still to go under the hammer, well, it's almost enough to make you want to twist and shout.
The excitement
Yes,
is still with us.
This is the one.
Because we've got the David Bailey collection of wonderful portraits. You know, they're all there, all the collection is there. Now, of course, some of them are faded, but I am genuinely excited about what's going to happen. How are you feeling?
Nervous. I hope you're right.
The box of pin-ups. Where shall we start the lot? Let's go £300 to start me.
300 to start.
£300. Surely on the telephone somebody wants to start me at £300? 300. 400. Do you want 500 on the telephone in the distance? £500. 600. £600 there at £600. That's £600. Anybody else want to come in? At £600 for it. For £600 for those prints at £600. 700 on the telephone, just in time. 800. 900. £900 on the telephone at £900.
900 on the telephone, Virginia.
£900 it goes then. Anybody else? £900 last chance.
Lovely.
£900.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Georgie, well done. You said you thought they would do more than that, didn't you?
It's wonderful.
The David Bailey prints sealed the deal and sent us soaring beyond our target. It's been a day of mixed fortunes, but I can't wait to tell Virginia and Kate just how much they've actually made for the charity.
Well, you have made, I'm so excited about this, you have made, we're £2,284.
That's wonderful. That's so good.
Oh, that's
lovely?
Oh, well done, please.
I want to be part of this because this is so exciting.
I love those David Bailey photographs, and I think the price was absolutely right on that. Actually, and I think they're lovely pictures, and it was a good price.
That amazing £2,284 raised by Virginia and Kate will go towards Hope and Homes for Children, a charity working in countries across Europe and Africa, which helps find loving families for orphans.
The charity is really important to me because I've seen firsthand these orphans in their appalling conditions in Romania and Albania, and I think about them every day, actually. And I cannot bear to think about them, and therefore this tiny sum of money in the context of what there is to help is going to be something towards making some of their lives better.
6-year-old Mihai was rescued from a Romanian institution where he was suffering from severe problems with movement and speech. He's now been moved into a family home, and since then, both his physical and emotional development have improved enormously.
Just a tiny bit of money can transform their lives.